Good morning, students. Welcome to the lecture of Real Analysis 2. In the last lecture, we have seen an important preposition saying these five statements are equivalent. Actually, these five statements are giving us the existence of a superset, which are the open sets having a certain property. Similarly, giving us the existence of subsets, which are the closed sets having the property, that is outer measure of E minus F is less than epsilon. Also, it is giving us the existence of set G in G delta, F in F sigma, which gives us G minus A and E minus F measurable. Okay. What is G minus E? This region between the two sets G and E. E minus F is the region between the two sets E and F, and both are measurable. The step-by-step proof of this proposition we have seen. Initially, we have proved the statement 1, 3, 5 equivalent, and then 1 to 4 equivalent, and then we have proved 1, 3, 5 equivalent. Okay. After proving this, we have seen some examples depending upon this proposition. Okay. I think there is no difficulty with the proof of this proposition. Correct? No? If you have, you can ask me the difficulties, if any. Have you given the revision for the proof of this preposition? Quite big proof actually.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Depending upon this, we have solved some example. The first example says that for a measurable set, there exist two Borel sets, B1 and B2, such that B1 is subset and B2 is superset of E, where the measure of all the three sets are equal. Measure of B1 is measure of E is equals to measure of B2. Okay. And this example we have solved by using the proposition statement, existence of G in G delta, F in F sigma, where outer measure of G minus is 0, outer measure of E minus F is 0. Okay. The second example we have proved is E1, E2 are measurable sets, then measure of E1 union E2 added with measure of E1 intersection E2 is measure of E1 plus measure of E2. This example we have divided into two cases. First case, if one of the measure is having infinite value, then the statement holds trivially. In the second case, we have seen for both finite measures, and we have given the proof. Here is some example I have given you to solve as homework. Have you tried for solving these examples? Have you got the proof or not? Yes, students. Have you solved these examples or not? Either you have to tell me yes or no. Right, ma'am? I hope I'm clearly audible.
मॅम थर्ड सॉल्व करून दाखवा.
How many of you tried to solve? First, you have to tell me.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
If few of you have, I think, tried to solve this. No doubt. Let us give one more day time to solve these examples, and then I will post the answers on our WhatsApp group. Okay. Let us go to today's lecture. The concept we were going to study in today's lecture is about the non-measurable sets. Up to now, whatever the discussion we have made is regarding the measurable set only. Okay. So let us recall the concept. What is measurable set? What is measurable set? The set E is said to be measurable. The set E is said to be measurable for any set A, no doubt subset of R. What we should obtain? Outer measure of A is equal to outer measure of A intersection E added with outer measure of A intersection
E complement.
Complement. Good. Okay. And this is what actually we have seen already. If this is my set A and E, say this is A and this is E. This part is A intersection E, and what about this part? This part is A intersection E complement. Therefore, actually this E set is going to make the partition of the set A. Okay, that is A, one can write as A intersection E union A intersection E complement. And this statement gives us that if I take the outer measure on both the sides, outer measure of this union of two sets must be equals to outer measure of the sum of the corresponding outer majors. This is what an idea is. And if this condition is true or going to hold, we are going to call this set E to be a measurable set. Therefore, next we have seen that outer measure is having some properties. It is translation invariant, correct? Then this is finitely additive, etc., etc. As it is finitely additive, but it fails to give us countable additivity property. This is going to give countable additivity. This will give actually a countable sub-additivity property. Just wait a minute. Okay, now we have seen countable subadditivity property regarding this. And then whatever this outer measure we have studied, as it is going to fail to give the countable additivity property, we have defined a new measure called as Lebesgue measure. Lebesgue measure is just an extension of the outer measure that we have seen in detail. For every point we have discussed regarding measurable set only. Now in today's lecture, we were going to understand the point of non-measurable set. Now, in order to understand the non-measurable set, we should understand some basic preliminaries. Okay, we should understand some basic preliminaries, and then we will go for giving an example of a non-measurable set. Now, in this basic preliminary, we were going to study one definition. Okay, and this definition is called sorry for the disturbance caused. Now we were going to study a definition. The definition is actually sum modulo 1. Sum modulo 1. Okay, now the sum modulo 1 is actually a special kind of summation or addition we were going to define. Previously, we have seen the definitions of modulo, A congruent to B modulo M, etc. But here, this is a new definition we were going to understand today. This is sum modulo 1. Why it is called 1? Let me tell you. Okay, the definition is given as if x and y are the 2 points in the interval closed 0 to open 1. Okay, just see it carefully. If the x and y are the 2 points in closed 0 and open 1, then the sum modulo 1 of x plus y of x and y denoted by the symbol we are going to use for this addition is plus, and over a dot we will put. Okay, therefore denoted by x, sum modulo 1 y is defined as. Let us see how it is going to be defined. The sum modulo 1 of x plus y is defined as ordinary sum x plus y, provided x plus y is less than 1, and it is defined to be x plus y minus 1 if x plus y is greater equal by 1. Let us try to understand. If x and y are the two elements in this 0, 1 interval, closed 0, open 1, what will be the maximum sum of the any two elements if I take? What would be a maximum sum?
Less than 1.
No, it is not less than 1.
0.9.
Maximum sum is less than 2. Correct, no? Because here it is open 1. Therefore, we cannot select x and y to be 1 and 1. If you write x is equals to y is equals to 1, what will be your addition? It is 2, no? Therefore, as this 1 is not included in the interval, what should be your x plus y less than 2? Correct, no?
Yes, ma'am.
X plus y to be less than. Or another example, let me take what is the maximum value less than 1 I can write is, suppose I am going to write less than 1 value for x and y to be some 0.9 and y to be some 0.8 say. Okay, these are the two values I have taken from this interval. Closed 0 and open 1. Then what is the value x plus y? This x
1.7.
plus y will be 0.9 and 0.8, that is 1.7. But in order to make this addition to be a binary operation, what I'm saying, this addition, if I wanted to make binary operation, then what should be the value x plus y? It should belong to the same interval. Therefore, if the value is going to be 1.7, whether it is going to belong to this interval or no, it is not, right? No, this value addition x plus y will not belong to this closed 0 to open 1. That's why just to make this operation sum modulo 1 to be a binary operation, this was a condition imposed. If your sum is exceeding 1 or greater than 1, then you have to subtract 1. Once we subtract 1, this sum is going to be a member of the same interval. Here also you can check. If we are getting the value 1.7 and if I subtract 1.1 from 1.7, what is the value we were going to get? This is 0.7. Now this 0.7 is the member of closed 0 and open 1. Correct now? If the sum is already less than 1, there is no difficulty. This addition will be the element of the same interval. But whenever the sum is exceeding 1 or exceeding 1, this will not be a member of this interval closed 0 to open. Therefore, just to make the addition as a binary operation, that is the sum should belong to the same interval, this operation is defined with a new definition, sum modulo 1. Okay, now understood why this word 1 is used, because we were going to subtract 1 from the addition if the addition is having a value 1 or greater than 1. Is the point clear to everyone? Sum modulo 1.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
This is
ma'am.
a special kind of definition. Okay, special sum you can see. Therefore, this sum modulo, the sum modulo 1 is a binary operation. Sum modulo 1 is a binary operation. No, actually everything we have made, the definition was written in order to make it binary, in order to make the sum to be a binary operation. Now my next question is whether this sum modulo 1 is commutative or not. Yes? Whether this sum modulo 1 is commutative or not. What do you think?
Yes, ma'am.
If
Yes,
I write
ma'am.
y plus x
Yes,
here,
ma'am.
yeah, it is commutative. Why? It is because this ordinary sum, ordinary addition is commutative. But if I write y plus x, what is going to happen? If I am going to write y sum modulo 1 with x, what is the value? This is y plus x. If y plus x is less than 1 and this next is y plus x minus 1 provided y plus x is greater equal to 1. So you just look at the right hand sides. First value is x plus y, here it is y plus x. Whether these two are same or not? Yes, they are same because ordinary addition is commutative. Similarly, for the second, x plus y minus 1 is exactly same as y plus x minus 1. Why this sum modulo 1 we were getting commutative? Because ordinary addition is commutative, right? Similarly, associativity holds. Associativity holds. Therefore, whatever is the sum modulo 1 operation is commutative and associative. Is commutative and associative. Any difficulty with this definition? Sum modulo 1.
No, ma'am.
Next. Now, we have already seen the definition of translation of a set. How we have defined a translation of a set E. Suppose I wanted to add this element y. How we have defined this set? This is x plus y for all x in E. Correct, no? To every member X of the set E, we were going to add the number Y. Now on the parallel line, we were going to define translation modulo 1. We were going to define the translation modulo 1 of a set. Translation modulo 1 of set E. Translation modulus 1 of a set E. Therefore, what is the set E? If E is the subset of this interval we have selected, close the 0 to open 1, then we were going to define translation modulo 1 as, let me write, if E is any subset of closed 0, open 1, the translation modulo 1 of E is defined by. Can you guess the definition? This is very similar to translation. Only the translation is by sum modulo 1. Okay. Therefore, the set is defined as E sum modulo 1 with Y. How I am going to write it? Very similar to this definition. We were going to add Y to every element X of the set E. Here also we will add Y to every element of the set E, but the addition is carried out by sum modulo 1. Therefore, can I write this as X sum modulo 1 Y for all X in E? Yes? Is the definition clear? Both the
Yes,
definitions goes parallelly. Here it is simply addition of Y to E. Here it is addition, sum modulo 1 addition of the set of the element Y to set E. Okay, this is what we have defined. The two definitions we have seen. First is sum modulo 1 and then second is translation modulo 1 of the set E. Now we will study one lemma depending on this, which proves that Lebesgue measure is invariant under this translation modulo 1. Lebesgue measure is invariant for this under this translation modulo 1. Let me write the lemma and we will see the proof in detail. Okay, lemma says that let E be a subset of closed 0, open 1 be a measurable set. Be a measurable set, then prove that for each Y in closed 0 to open 1, the set E sum modulo 1 Y is measurable and measure of E sum modulo 1 with Y is measure of E. We have proved this kind of lemma previously also, na? But that is regarding the simple addition. We have proved Lebesgue measure is invariant under simple addition used. And in that case, we have proved E plus Y is measurable and M of E plus Y is M of E also. Correct now? Do you remember or not?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
We have proved. Okay. Now what the job is? Again, the job is to prove Lebesgue measure is invariant. But this invariant is now taken under which operation? Sum modulo 1. Therefore, here this E is selected to be particularly a subset of this closed 0, open 1 interval given to be a measurable set. And then we were going to prove for every scalar of the same interval, the set E sum modulo 1Y is measurable and rather these two are equal. Let us prove this. In order to prove this, what we were going to do is initially whatever is the set E closed 0 to open 1 we have selected, we were going to divide it into two parts, rather pairwise disjoint parts. How? Let us check. Okay, this is actually our closed 0 to open 1 set. This is called as E. Right now we were going to write what we were going to write? We were going to write E to be a subset of E, no? Sorry, E to be a subset of closed 0 to open 1. Means one of the subset in that, right? Then can I write this E? Can I write this E as E intersection with closed 0 and open 1? E is subset of this. Therefore, if I take the intersection of both, what this is going to give us, whether it is E itself,
Yes, ma'am.
right? No? Okay. So this is not E actually. E is we were going to consider as one of the subset. Now, this closed interval 0 to open 1, we were going to write with the help of one element 1 minus y. What is y given to us? Y is an element of, here I will given that y is an element of closed 0 and open 1. Therefore, what is the value of 1 minus y? Y actually lies between 0 to strictly 1, right now? Lies between this. Therefore, may I say 1 minus y also going to lie in between closed 0 to open y? 1
Yes,
minus
ma'am.
y is going to lie between the same. Now, this is what the two sets we were going to select. First set we were going to select is closed 0 to open 1 minus y. Then the second set we will select is closed 1 minus y to open 1. This is what a partition we were going to make, right? Therefore, I am going to write this this closed 0 to open 1 as closed 0 to open 1 minus y union with closed 1 minus y to open 1. Check, are you getting this point or not? I'm just writing this closed 0, 1 as the union of two disjoint set. As the value of y lies between 0 to 1, 1 minus y also lies between 0 to 1 itself. Right? This is what we have selected. How you are going to get the addition? Sorry, how you are going to get the intersection of these two? By which law? Distributive. What the distributive law says? E intersection with this union. Yes? E intersection with the close the 0 to open 1 minus y union with E intersection
1 minus
close 1 minus y to open 1. Okay. Next point is we were going to denote this set by E1 and this by E2 set. We are going to denote this set by E1 and this by E2. Therefore, let me write E1 as what E1 we were going to select? E intersection closed 0 to open 1 minus y. E2 is E intersection closed 1 minus y to open 1. Okay. Therefore, now may I say E1, E2 are disjoint measurable sets?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Why these are measurable? Because we know every type interval is measurable. E is measurable given. Therefore, what about their intersection? Measurable again?
Measurable.
Yes. Then E1 and E2 are disjoint measurable sets. E1, E2 are disjoint measurable sets. And can I write the set E as E1 union E2? Can I write the set as E1 union E2? Now one may have a question, why we have taken this 1 minus y actually? This may be a question, but the answer is to the next step. When we will write this set E1 and then we will find out its translation modulo y invariant value, then this 1 minus y will help us to generate the sum x plus y. Okay, that I will explain. Any difficulty up to this part? E we have written the union of two disjoint measurable sets E1 and E2. E1 and E2. Here only can I write measure of E is measure of E1 added with measure of E2.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me call this as statement number 1. Now let me come to the set E1 translation modulo 1 with the element y. This is what we wanted to prove, no? Actually, E plus y we wanted to find. Therefore, initially, as we have written E as E1 union E2, we will initially find E1 translation modulo 1 with y, then E2 translation modulo 1 with y. Then we will go for E translation modulo 1 with y. Okay, how the set is being defined? As we have seen already. This is x sum modulo 1 with y for all x in E. Correct? Correct, no?
Yes, ma'am. E1.
Okay, sorry, it is E1, right. Now what is the set E1 we will define? This is x addition modulo, sum modulo 1 with y. What is the condition for E1? E1 is the set closed 0 to open 1 minus y. Therefore, may I write this element x is going to lie between. Yes, this element x is going to be greater equal by 0 and less than 1 minus y for x in E. Right now? Because this is according to the definition of E1. Na? What is E1 we have? E1 is closed 0 to open 1 minus 1. Therefore, whatever x we have going to select, this is closed 0 to open 1 minus y. Okay. To the next step, can I write this as? Can I write this as? Let me just add y here. May I say the sum is actually x less than 1 plus y, whether it gives me x plus y less than 1, and no doubt the sum is again greater or equal by 0. The reason is x less than 1 minus y. X less than 1 minus y, which will give us x plus y less than 1. And both values x and y are greater equal by 0. Therefore, the sum is also greater equal by 0. This is what we have written. Therefore, which kind of addition value we have found? X plus y is less than 1. And for x plus y less than 1, what is sum modulo 1 x plus y? Is it ordinary x plus y? This is an ordinary sum, no? For x plus y less than 1, sum modulo 1 is ordinary sum. Therefore, can I replace this sum by ordinary sum x plus y, provided x is in E and 0 less than or equals to x plus y strictly less than by 1. Therefore, may I write this is nothing but E1 plus y. For what we have obtained, E1 translation modulo 1 with y is E1 plus y, and let me call it as statement number 2. The first value we have obtained, E1 translation modulo 1 with y. Now similarly what we have to do? We have to find out the value of the second one. Similarly, second value is E2 sum modulo 1 with y is being defined as x sum modulo 1 with y, provided x is in E2. Okay, what is the definition for E2 we have selected? X is in E and
1 minus y less than or equal to x less than 1.
good, 1 minus y less than or equals to x strictly less than by y. Strictly less than by y. Okay. Therefore, what about the addition value? X plus y with this condition. 1 minus x less than y. Less than or equals to 1 minus y less than or equals to x. Therefore, what about shifting this y on the right side? Is it 1 greater less than or equals to x plus y?
Yes, ma'am.
Therefore, can I write here 1 less than or equals to x plus y? That is x plus y is greater equal by 1. Now with this condition, how this sum modulo 1 is defined?
X plus y minus 1.
Yes, this is x plus y minus 1. No doubt x is in E with the same condition. Okay, therefore this is actually to every element of this E2, y minus 1 is added. Therefore, can I write this as a translation of the set E2 with y minus 1? Just check. If you have any query, you can ask me. Okay. This is nothing but a condition for set E2. Na? This is a condition for E2. And to every element x, a number y minus 1 is added. Therefore, this is actually a translation of the set E2 with this number y minus 1. Is the point clear to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
This is statement number 3. Okay, now look at the 3 statements we have written. Measure of E is measure of E1 plus measure of E2. Then, in order to prove measure of E as measure of E1 plus Y, first we have measure of E is measure of E plus Y. First, we have found E1 sum modulo 1 with Y, which we have obtained as E1 plus Y itself. E2 sum modulo 1 with Y, we have obtained as E2 plus Y minus 1. But as E1, E2 both are measurable, may I say, whatever is the right hand side we have obtained, these are also measurable. E1 plus Y is also measurable and E2 plus Y is measurable. What is the reason? Vivek measure is translation invariant, correct? Now, E1, E2 are measurable sets. E1, E2 are measurable sets. Therefore, E1 plus Y and E2 plus Y minus 1 are also measurable. Are also measurable sets. Okay. Therefore, if these two are measurable, can I say E1 sum modulo 1 with Y and E2 sum modulo 1 with Y are also measurable. These two are measurable. These are the right hand sides of statement 2 and 3. If the right hand sides are measurable, no doubt the left hand sides are also measurable. Okay. Now let us go for finding the major values of the every set. And what is measure of E1 sum modulo 1 with Y? These two are same, na? This is measure of E1 plus Y itself. Reason by 2. What is measure of E1 plus Y?
Measure of E.
E1. Right, na? This is measure of, right? Reason is
Translation invariant.
Lebesgue measure is translation invariant. Lebesgue measure is translation invariant. Measure of E1 plus Y we have obtained. Measure of E1, you can call this to be a next equation number 4 because we are going to use this. And what about the second measure of E2 sum modulo 1 with Y? Is it measure of E2 plus Y minus 1? Reason by statement number 3. And what is this measure value now again?
Measure of
E2.
Measure of E2. Right? With the same reason, na? Lebesgue measure is translation invariant. Therefore, what is this equation we have obtained? Measure of E1 sum modulo 1 with Y is measure of E1. Similarly, measure of E2 sum modulo 1 with Y is measure of E2. What's the next number? It's 5. Now we are about to finish the lemma. Okay. Lastly, but now we wanted to prove for E plus Y. Therefore, can I write E sum modulo 1 with Y? E is actually E1 union E2 sum modulo 1 with Y. Already we have proved in case of addition that this is E1 sum modulo 1 with Y union E2 sum modulo 1 with Y. Okay. Therefore, what is this corresponding measure? Therefore, what is this corresponding measure? Or what about the measurability first? This we have written measurable. This also we have written measurable. Correct now? Here we have written E1 sum modulo 1 with Y, E2 sum modulo 1 with Y are measurable sets. If these two are measurable, what about their union?
Measurable.
Measurable. Therefore, here let me write. This shows that E1, sorry, E sum modulo 1 with Y is measurable. Okay, and what about the measure we want to show? Measure of E sum modulo 1 with Y is measure of E. Let us go for that. So this is measure of E sum modulo 1 with Y. How can I write the measure with this relation? This is union of two sets. Therefore, may I write this as sum of the twos? Right, good. Reason?
Finitely additive.
Libet measure it is, na? Why finitely additive? Countable additive. Right, na?
Yes, ma'am.
Libet measure is countable additive. Libet measure is countable additive. But what are the two values? Measure of even sum modulo 1 with Y. This is measure of E1 by 4. By 5, this is measure of E2. Can I write this as measure of E1 plus measure of E2? Reason from 4 and 5. Now, what is this measure of E1 plus measure of E2?
Measure of E.
Yes, it is measure of E by statement number 1. Because E we have written E1 union E2. Therefore, measure of E is measure of E1 plus measure of E2. Therefore, by 1, this is measure of E. Right? What we have proved? Measure of E sum modulo 1 with Y is measure of E. Therefore, what this implies? This measure is translation invariant. With respect to which operation? Sum modulo 1. Correct, no? With respect to sum modulo 1. Therefore, may I write here now, this implies Lebesgue measure is invariant under which operation? Translation of sum modulo 1. That is, we were writing translation modulo 1. Okay, check if you have any difficulty with the proof. Let me just recall the proof. For any subset E of the interval closed 0 to open 1, for any Y of the same interval, we wanted to prove that E sum modulo 1 with Y is measurable and also the measure of the two sets are equal. That is, measure of E sum modulo 1 with Y is equal to measure of E. For that, we have written E to be E intersection with the interval closed 0 to open 1. As the value of Y is less than 1, therefore 1 minus Y is also lying between the same or lying in the same interval. But just writing this interval closed 0 open 1 as the union of two disjoint intervals. Union of two disjoint interval. One we will call now by using a distributive law. This is E intersection closed 0 open 1 minus Y. We will call it as E1. Second is E intersection closed 1 minus Y to open 1. We will call it as E2. So these are the two different sets we have denoted. Therefore, the set E is actually E1 union E2, proving that measure of E is measure of E1 plus measure of E2. Now, actually, our aim is to go for finding this E sum modulo 1 with Y. So, first we will find out what is E1 sum modulo 1 with Y. And as per the definition, we have seen E1 sum modulo 1 with Y is E1 plus Y. Similarly, E2 sum modulo 1 with Y is E2 plus Y minus 1. Now, as the sets E1, E2 are measurable, their translations are also measurable. If the translations are measurable, the sets even sum modulo 1 with y, e2 sum modulo 1 with y are also measurable. Also, we have find their major values. What is the major value we have obtained? Major value of E1 sum modulo 1 with y is measure of E1. Similarly, the second is measure of E2. And then finally, just we have written what is E1 sum modulo 1 with y. Okay, which proves that E1 E sum modulo 1 with y is measurable and both the measures are same. Which actually proves that Lebesgue measure is invariant under translation modulo 1. Yes, if you have any difficulty, you can ask. Difficulty if you have in this lemma. No?
No, ma'am.
Good. Now we will go for the main theorem for which we have proved this lemma actually. Lebesgue measure is invariant under translation modulo 1, and the theorem says that there exists a non-measurable set in the interval closed 0 to open 1. There exists one non-measurable set in this interval. Now our aim is to find out the set which is non-measurable belonging to this set. Let me write the lemma. Prove that Prove that there exists a non-measurable set. There exists a non-measurable set in closed 0 to open 1. Okay. In order to prove this theorem, we were going to make use of an equivalence relation and the property of an equivalence relation. I hope you are familiar with the properties of the equivalence relation. If this is an equivalence relation, we were going to denote how many properties this relation has to satisfy. Reflexive,
Symmetry, transitivity.
and transitivity. Similarly, this equivalence relation is going to form the equivalence classes also. Correct, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what is the property of the equivalence classes? The important property of the equivalence classes is actually it is going to form the partition of the given set. That is, rather you can say disjoint partition, right? No, pairwise disjoint partition. That is, if this is the set under the consideration, given any set AC, and if I'm going to define this as an equivalence relation on the set A, then with the help of this equivalence relation, the set A can be divided into a disjoint partition like this. I think in algebra class equation you have seen this partition, right? No?
Yes, ma'am.
You have made the partitions. So these are the partitions. This is P1, P2, P3, P4, P5 and so on. These are the partitions. What is the important characteristic of the equivalence classes? Either the two equivalence classes are totally disjoint. That is, if I am writing say this is equivalence class symbol. Okay. If I am writing equivalence class of A and equivalence class of B, then the one possibility is their intersection is empty. There is no element in common, or if there is element in common, both the equivalence classes are same. If what is the property of the equivalence classes? Either they are disjoint or exactly same. That's why this is going to give us the partition of the given set into pairwise disjoint equivalence classes. Correct, now? Now we were going to make use of this property of an equivalence relation. For this, what the job we were going to do is, we were going to define one equivalence relation on which set on the interval closed 0 to open 1. We will prove that this relation is reflexive, symmetric and transitive so that it becomes an equivalence relation. Once we get the equivalence relation, no doubt we are going to get the equivalence classes of this interval. This interval is actually an interval closed 0 to open 1. We were going to make this some partitions like this, pairwise disjoint partition. Okay. Now what the job we were going to do? Suppose P is the collection of all partitions. P is collection of all partitions of the set or the interval closed 0 to open 1. Then the set P, we were going to select one element from every equivalence class. I am going to select the set P to be one element from each equivalence class. One element from each equivalence. Let me show you here in this picture. If I'm having this as a partition of the set given interval, say these are the equivalence classes, we were going to select one element from every class. Say the first element is A1 I have selected, here it is A2 I have selected, here it is A3, here it is A4, here it is A5. One element from every equivalence class. If I select, okay, and this is what a set we were going to define as P, and our aim is to show that this whatever this P selected is a non-measurable set. Whatever this P selected will be a non-measurable set. How to prove it is a non-measurable set, that I will show you. But have you understood the theme, what I am going to do in this proof? In order to find out the non-measurable set of this interval, first I am going to define an equivalence relation which will make the partitions of the given set, that is equivalence classes. We are going to select the set P to be one element from each equivalence class and then prove this P is to be a non-measurable set. Understood the theme?
Yes, ma'am.
Shall I proceed for the proof then? Okay. The question is how this equivalence relation is being defined. Okay. Now the equivalence relation we are going to define here is for any xy in closed 0 to open y, define a relation x related with y if and only if x minus y is a rational number. Now why rational numbers are selected? Because we know rational numbers are countable, and as we are going to select one element from each equivalent class, that is this set will be countable again. Okay, therefore what is the relation? Element x is related to y if and only if x minus y is a rational number. Let us check whether the property is reflexive. Yes. Whether the property is reflexive. In order to prove it is reflexive, what it should be actually, x must be related with x, na?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but what can I write here then? We
X
know
minus
that.
x is.
Yes, x minus x is equal to 0. Whether 0 is a rational number.
Yes, ma'am.
Is a rational number. Therefore, may I say x is related with x. Okay, therefore the relation is reflexive. Let us check next, symmetric relation. What we have to check in symmetry? X related with y.
Y related to x.
Yes. Now what to be assumed? X is related with y is assumption, which implies x minus y is a rational number. What about y minus x then?
Rational number.
Yes, it is rational, but negative. We are not bothering about the sign. So y minus x is also a rational number. If y minus x is a rational number, may I say y is related with x. The relation is symmetric. Right now, number 3. What to assume? X related with y related with z. What this is going to give us then? X minus y and y minus z are rational number. Okay. What about their addition then?
Rational.
Why? Yes, why? Why x minus z addition is rational number? In terms of algebra, you can give me the answer. In algebra, you have studied all the properties of the sets, no? We know rational number is a field, correct? If it is field, first it has to be a ring with certain conditions which will be a field. For ring, it has to be additive abelian group. Therefore, may I say as a set Q of rational number is a field, it is closed under addition. Right now?
Yes,
Closed
ma'am.
under addition. That's why we were writing if x minus y minus z are rational number, their addition is also a rational number. Therefore, the relation is x minus z we have obtained to be a rational number. Therefore, may I say x is related with z, and if x is related with z, the relation is transitive. Correct, na? The relation is transitive. So whatever is the relation we have defined is an equivalence relation. The relation, this symbol we have used, is an equivalence relation. On which set closed 0 to open 1. Now we were going to claim the existence of partition. Hence, there exists a partition of which set closed 0 to open 1 into disjoint equivalence classes. Whenever we were saying disjoint equivalence classes, what will be a meaning? Here these are the
Intersection will be 5.
intersection is empty, or if I take two elements of the same class, they will differ by a rational number, right? Now, the relation we have defined is difference is rational number. Therefore, if the two elements we have taken of the same class, they will differ by a rational number. And if I take two elements from two different classes, what about their difference? Whether it is rational number or irrational number.
Irrational.
Yes, it is irrational. Because if it is rational, suppose here is one element x and here is one element y we have taken. And if I am saying x minus y is rational, then what will be a meaning? X is related to y, then x should be a member of this equivalence class. And we know if one element is equal, the two equivalence classes must be equal. Therefore, the difference must be an irrational number if I select two different elements from two different classes, right? Can I write the statement? That is, any two elements of the same class differ by a rational number. Differ by a rational number while those of different classes differ by an irrational number. Is the point clear to everyone? Now we are going to construct the set P. Construct set P by choosing exactly one element from each equivalence class. One element from each equivalence class, and we shall show that P is a non-measurable set. P is a non-measurable set. Okay. Now here today's lecture we will stop, because to prove this P to be a measurable set, I'll at least require some 15 to 20 minutes to explain. But now we are out of time. So let me stop it for here. We have selected the set P, and in the next lecture we will prove the set is non-measurable set. Okay. Any difficulty up to this? If you have, you can ask. Okay. Because at 1:30 you have your next lecture also, no? Okay. Shall I stop for this lecture now? We will continue this in the next lecture. Thank you for being with me for this lecture. Thank you.